Good morning, fifth grade. We're going to continue with our study of Esther, and we're going to look at Esther chapter 4 today and see what happens after Haman and the king made this, well, mostly Haman, but the king agreed to it, made this plot that in every region they were going to have the Jews murdered. Now, it hadn't happened yet, but it was a decree that was given that was going to happen. So here's something interesting, an interesting observation. Until chapter 4, none of Esther's words have been recorded. All that we've seen about this young woman is about her beauty, her lovely demeanor, like how she acts, how her desire was to please, that she was very respectful and had devotion towards Mordecai. But thus far, Esther's unspoken example is just this picture of this meek, modest woman. Now her own words are going to show us this other part of her character. So there's multiple parts to Esther's character. And chapter 4 records a serious conversation that's going to take place between Esther and Mordecai through Esther's messenger. And when the queen learns that her cousin is that Mordecai's making this very, very public display of sorrow, she tries to discover why he is doing that and what she can do for him. But Mordecai's response to her kind of distresses her. It kind of throws her a little bit. And you're going to see that her two reactions, her first one can be summed up in two words that say, I can't. Her second reaction to him is going to be, I will. So as we read through this, Esther's faced with this crisis. I want you to ask God what he wants to teach you about courage when you're really put to the test in day-to-day life or in bigger situations. Okay, so here we go. Chapter 4. When Mordecai learned all that had been done, Mordecai tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes and went out into the midst of the city, and he cried out with this loud and bitter cry. So the sackcloth and ashes was kind of like this outward sign of an inward distress. And millions of Jews were doing this around this entire region. Imagine what that would have done to any society if all these people were dressed in sackcloths and crying out and wailing. We learned about this with another character who did this. Do you remember his name? When he was distressed and his friends came over, but they really weren't his friends? Right, Job. Okay, so he's in this sackcloth. And he has ashes all over him. He's literally crying out this bitter cry because he realized again that his actions, Mordecai's actions, are what caused this entire thing to happen of Haman's reaction to all Jews. So he's feeling that little extra pressure, okay? He went up to the entrance of the king's gate, for no one was allowed to enter the king's gate clothed in sackcloth. In every province, wherever the king's commands and his decrees reached, there was great mourning among the Jews, mourning like sadness, okay? And with fasting and weeping and lamenting, that means like lamenting, that means like crying out. Many of them lay in sackcloth and ashes. When Esther's young woman and her eunuchs came and told her, the queen was deeply distressed, and she sent garments to clothe Mordecai so that he might take off his sackcloth, but he would not accept them. Then Esther called for Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs. This was her messenger, okay, who had been appointed to attend her, and ordered him to go to Mordecai to learn what this was and why it was. She wanted to know, why in the world are you acting this way, Mordecai? Hathach went out to Mordecai in the open square of the city in front of the king's gate, and Mordecai told him all that had happened to him, at the exact sum of money that Haman had promised to pay into the king's treasuries for the destruction of all the Jews. Mordecai also gave him a copy of the written decree issued in the capital of Susa for all the Jews' destruction, that he might show it to Esther and explain it to her and command her to go to the king and beg his favor and plead with him on behalf of her people. So he's telling Esther's messenger, please go to the king and tell the king what he's done and beg him not to do this. So Hathach went and told Esther what Mordecai had said. Then Esther spoke to Hathach and commanded him to go to Mordecai and say, so this is her first spoken words in the book of Esther. All the king's servants and the people of the king's provinces know that if any man or woman goes to the king inside the inner court without being called, there is but one law, and that's to be put to death, except the one to whom the king holds out the golden scepter so that they may live. But as for me, I haven't been called to come into the king these 30 days. Summed up in 2 words, I can't, okay? She heard, go to the king and beg for me, but back in this time, if the king didn't call you into his presence and you decided to go and step into his presence, he could kill you, or he would have you killed, okay? And they told Mordecai what Esther had said. Then Mordecai told them to reply to Esther, do not think to yourself that in the king's palace you will escape any more than all the other Jews. For if you keep silent at this time, relief and deliverance will rise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Mordecai is basically telling her, if you keep quiet, you're going to end up in the same situation that I'm in. It's going to come, people are going to find out that you're Jewish and you're going to be put to death too. You have been put in this position for a specific reason, is basically what he's telling her, okay? Then Esther told them to reply to Mordecai. So this is her second response. Go, gather all the Jews to be found in Susa and hold a fast on my behalf, and do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. So for 3 whole days, night or day, don't eat anything, don't drink anything, but pray. Because most fasting would be for a time period. So from like this part of the day, I would fast, but then the rest of the day I could eat and drink. But during that small time, I would pray. She's asking for 3 days straight. Don't eat or drink, but just pray for me, okay? And she goes on, I and my young woman will also fast as you do. Then I will go to the king, though it is against the law, and if I die, I die. Mordecai then went away and did everything as Esther had ordered. So Esther decided that that second segment could be summed up in 2 words that say, I will. She's decided that with her position comes great responsibility. Her responsibility was for her people. And that was to basically reveal to the king, hey, you're going to put your own wife to death. So she had to face this tough decision. Should I do this? But I love her response. Her response is first to spend time in prayer before she went and did this. This is all about courage under fire. Courage when it's not easy to be courageous. Courage when you know that the consequences of your right actions could bring about some sort of pain or hurt or death. She was praying for courage. What you're going to do is you're going to look at the questions below this video and you're going to answer those questions in complete sentences and email them back to your homeroom teacher. And next time we will look at what happens next.